Yeah,
was slaying the dragon.
yeah.
Okay, it's on the 21st. That's the defeat of the dragon. That is our wisdom in chaos, because we're basically in chaos at the moment while they make us think of that. But if it is at a collaborated sense of thought within all of us, it's easier for them to pull this off, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, also, I view a dragon as a cross between an eagle and a snake. Like the eagle being the ego, the mind, which is important to rise above, and then the snake being the body or the persona. So the snake or feminine intuition would be the heart, and then the eagle would be the mind. This neck, the neck is very interesting because it's what connects the heart and the mind. So they need to cut that symbolically. And I think that is part of slaying the dragon, because our dragon energy is our birthright. We should be balanced with both heart and mind. Like if you've got too much ego, you don't need less ego, you need more heart. We should be up here. We should be like breathing fire like dragons. But if you cut this is a throat chakra. You suppress this, people scared to talk or whatever. And obviously wearing a white t-shirt with freedom on it. It seems that they're trying to do a lot, which a lot of people won't see, but we can see the symbology and the astrology and stuff. They're trying to do a lot to hold on to their power. It makes me feel personally quite good seeing all this.
No, I think you lost connection.
We lost everyone. I was going to say, with all the Merlin stuff, though, the red and white dragon is all his prophecy.
It is a prophecy, yeah. It's very interesting how we just lost both of them.
Yeah, where have they gone?
But honestly, if that is how if all of the stuff is being orchestrated for us to have our basically our wisdom, our intellect between one another to show each other, hey, this is what's happening over here. And another one saying that, yeah, this is also happening over here. It's like a connected collaboration. If there's no network, and we can't, I mean, if you look at what happened in Nepal after the social media and stuff went down, the people went absolutely ballistic. They really went, there was a real uproar. Now, maybe once they saw this happening in Nepal, they were like, okay, wait, I think we need a better plan here. Because if we cut the network and everybody goes absolutely crazy, we've lost complete control. We have no control of the chaos. And we are the wisdom and the chaos in itself. So maybe this is a way or a form for them to, like we say, the world is the stage, where they collaborate whatever it is with parlor tricks and so on, so that we can believe that this is going to happen. We can believe that, okay, cool, something's happening with the sun, and we now know we can't blame the government for the networks going down. We can't blame them. It's the sun. It was an EMF coming off. It was a solar flare that created this. So I really, really think, now that you make all my hair stand up when you had mentioned that the 21st is the day that dragon was slain by you said Bellathron, I think. Sorry, it's the first time I hear that name, and I go quite deep into Hermetics, Gnosis. I go crazy deep into the old Greek mythologies and so on, which is basically what Gnosis is, Greek wisdom.
Is it just a version of Bell and the Dragon?
What I think it is, what I also think it was, I think if you take it in terms of collaborating all these stories together, which is what I do with Greek mythology, if you think of Jove being Jupiter and Hermes being Mercury and Quicksilver, if you don't combine all of these names, you can't see who the driving force is in this actual story. It's just another story with more breadcrumbs added to another story. So if you take Bellathron and you put Hermes Trismegistus on the horse that is slaying the the griffin of the Tartarian Empire, or the wisdom, because I've seen it as a griffin as well, not just as a dragon. It's like a half and half. If you look at some of the flags as well, it's very, like you said, the eagle and the dragon are very similar. When you said that, I immediately made the connection there. That is, I think this is just another form of making a brilliant excuse for us within our reality, that this is the best way to suppress us communicating to each other the wisdom. And him slaying the dragon or the griffin or whatever it may be, whoever is on the horse, or that is on Pegasus itself, is the one that's suppressing the wisdom in chaos. They just need the excuse to do it, so that we don't create complete chaos like they would have done in Nepal after their networks went down. I honestly think they do it as a test. Okay, let's see what this nation does when we take away their network. Let's see what they do. And if they go completely bonkers, then we can then have another way that we can try and suppress the nation so that we still stay in power, but they think it's something else. It's not us.
I want to add one thing, just to get back to something that you dropped earlier, Shinobi, and I know you were in the middle of a sentence. I think this is going to be an interesting. I'm decoding what you're saying with the astrotheology, the structure of the cosmos, and you mentioned the something that made me think about the plowman, right? I think you mentioned the plowman tilling the ground, and then you mentioned the shepherd, right? These two. Now, traditionally, Libra is associated with the shepherd. Libra is the outer arm, the fulcrum of the proverbial wheel, the zodiac. So you could think of Libra, the scales, as representing Mart. The tarot card, the major arcana would be justice. And the outer side of, and interestingly enough, representing justice as it does, it is Lamet. Now, when we look at Lamet, there's a form of breaking down Nauticron, which is breaking down the Kabbalistic values of the Paleo-Hebrew Phoenician language alphabet into two structures. There's Gematria, which everybody's aware of, but there's another way of permuting the numbers and creating new words out of existing words by splitting the alphabet, the alpha and the omega, into the two parts of 11, the double 11 codes. That makes Lamet the first of the second stage, which relates to the life force of the great bull. And I'm just going to keep this as a back note for a allegory with relation to the great bull of heaven driving the zodiac, right? The element of earth, the bull, Taurus, the tauric field of reality that is coming through. But Libra, representing the outer fulcrum, would thus be a representative of the periphery of the sphere. But the core of the sphere is the axis mundi. And the axis mundi, that is the plow. So this makes a connection between the plow being the North Star, the pole star, and Libra being the outer arm of the wheel, that is the furthest sign from the sun, right? Which is quite interesting because the sun relates to the pole star as it's sort of synchronized with the pole star. You could think of it as as our proverbial pole star within a bigger system, in terms of fractals. So there's a really interesting connection astrotheologically between the sign of Libra and the pole star as it relates to the plowman. And so I thought I'd add that in, but do please, you were in the middle of a thing, and I think it was me that kicked you accidentally. I was trying to close down one of my images, and then I accidentally think I clicked the wrong thing, and next thing you were gone.
I'm not going to finish what I was saying, so I'd pretty much finished anyway, and I'm going to make a proper video with with images and stuff. I'd pretty much finished. The main bit was Pegasus is basically a Trojan horse, and it's echoes the myth and St. George and stuff. But it's very interesting what you were saying there about the pole star, because the World Health Organization had Operation Polaris, which is obviously the pole star. And then the pole star is our center, which is our heart chakra as well, which a certain state in the Middle East have as their flag, as above, so below. So you can view the pole star as above, so below. It's kind of our center. The swastika as well represents the pole star too. So it seems that occultists use these symbols to try and pull something. Also, Libra, the scales would be associated with Anubis, who's associated with the heart as well, and Matt weighing the heart against the feather. So I think we're kind of at a crossroads, going from a number 9 year to a 10 next year. But I just need to point out something in the chats that Altuition saying that Tiamat has never been depicted as good. She's a mother of all monsters. Well, Pan is the devil by that logic. Pan is Satan, according to the Catholic Church. So where are you getting information from that Tiamat has never been good? Tiamat just represents, if you look at the essence, is basically ionized gas like plasma or salt water. Okay, that electric charge. So Eve was evil. You have everything associated with the feminine being negative. Even negative is feminine. Black, chaos is negative. It's not. Magic, that's evil. Reiki, healing, is evil. And everything related to this like kind of magic or watery substance, which is Tiamat, is seen as bad. But I think that's done by this kind of Marduk energy that Elon Musk is really pushing out now. Well, they use their dark magic to create AI and try and birth Ahriman. I'll explain that in a sec. We're kind of detached from our true nature, which is magic, which is water, which is memory, to bring things into this realm. And at the beginning, you mentioned birth and pain and trauma. I wanted to mention this back then, but I'll just say this now quickly, that it seems that at the moment something is being birthed like this. That's why there's so much pain, so much trauma, because we're going from one yuga to another yuga potentially. And also a doula reminds me much like a dollar, like the dollar and a doula. It seems that the dollar is being used to bring something into existence, like via our energy, which is this kind of machine or mechanistic energy, because there's all the two twins. One is magic, one is the machine, one is nature, and one is this kind of opposite of nature, this kind of mechanical. So there's two opposites. We can either use our ancient intelligence, which is more nature or water or memory, or we can use the artificial intelligence, which is coming into the mind via air. And I think that this kind of echo of Marduk is kind of telling people that no, magic is bad. They're trying to like make people dehydrated spiritually, so their heads can be filled with all this AI, so they kind of look outwards rather than going inwards. So an energy is being birthed at the moment, and it's birthed via us. So like we have the power to bring in either this god, the Ahura Mazda, or Ahriman, one or the other. But one is going to come into this realm, and it's slowly starting to come into this realm now, and it's definitely not all doom and gloom, because Ahura Mazda always wins, the good always wins. But we are in the middle of a battle in our minds, in the material realm, and also in the spiritual realms as well. And you can see this when you start looking at the symbolism, the astrological stuff. what's happening right now with digital money trying to come in and stuff, you can see their evil little plans, and they're trying to cling on to power. And when I was thinking of birth and pain at the beginning, so the story of Ahura Mazda and Ahriman, basically Ahriman forced his way out of the womb. This is why they're pushing so many C-sections. Even people who aren't planning on having kids want a C-section. It's this mental virus that people have. C-sections, some people need them, that's fine, but people shouldn't be planning to have.
We're at probably a 70% C-section rate for first-time mums in most hospitals in the UK now.
Yeah, so you don't come through.
They don't reveal it, but
yeah, exactly. It's crazy, and you're not born through water. It's this watery element, and obviously it's good for your immune system, this water. It's good for your gut biome, because this kind of gut biome is linked to autism. Yeah, and this Ahrimanic energy is more of this collective we. And I think that perhaps they want people to have autism, but not high functioning autism. They want people to not know, they want people looking outside for guidance. Whereas I'm not hating on autistic people or anything like that. I'm just saying that C-sections are related to the gut biome, and the gut biome is related to autism and critical thinking. And they don't want people to think critically. They want people too focused on gender, race,
Yeah. But I think
it's also.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Oh, anyway, okay. So the Rothschilds basically, they did two very, very massive things that they pushed, and that would be raw milk needed to be pasteurized. Okay, which is very interesting because it naturally comes from the it naturally comes from an animal that created. I mean, it's like pasteurizing your mother's milk when you're a baby. It's the proper minerals that you need, and it actually I know numerous people that have helped their children with autism through giving them raw milk, not pasteurizing it, breaking down the minerals that's within the raw milk as well. But I mean, that's the world we live in. We live in a world where we're drinking recycled water that is completely dead, full of fluoride and who knows what else. There's no, it didn't go through a natural cycle. It's the same thing. If you can read what your body is doing, if you're drinking water but you're continuously running to the toilet, your body's obviously not taking in water. But if you put a bit of salt under your tongue, your body takes in a bit more of the water. It's just fascinating how the reality we are living in is completely shaping what we perceive as how we're supposed to be living. It's the same with orchestrating these events where we have eclipses and so on and so on. Never mind.
Is he gone?
I just dropped out.
I was just.
There we go. I'm back on. Yeah, the network is bad, eh?
I was just looking at some events that have happened on the 21st of September, historically, and it's quite interesting. So 454 AD, the last of the Romans was assassinated. 1170 AD, the Normans invaded Ireland. 1792, the French Republic was announced, monarchy was abolished. 1949, effectively the Chinese communist government was established. So if they are faking the eclipses, and what are they trying to bring about prophetically is quite interesting.
I think that's a really interesting point that you bring up. This obviously we're looking at the solstice, it's the equinox, So the equinox means that we're in the middle of the solar cycle. So we're pretty much between Libra and Libra's movements, right? Which is quite a prominent place to be at. Virgo representing obviously the information age. And so we're in the information age. And you mentioned the Rothschild family. I hope everybody's in the studio. Yes, he is in the studio. Yes, no, yes, you are. You mentioned the Rothschild family, and the Rothschild family, as far as I know, they were the preeminent funding family for a lot of the institutions that became our pharmaceutical corporations. They changed the face of medicine in the early 1800s, had a huge hand to play in our education systems as well. So Virgo represents the health of the physical body, pharmaceuticals, medicine. And Virgo also represents information and the processing of information and holding databases. So databases is going to be a part of, I think, what we're going to be observing, shifting laws and regulation of database information entry and legislation with regards. Now, at the moment in the US, I don't know if you guys have been following this, but there's a huge movement being pushed, and they are sort of getting rid of a lot of the smaller, localized organizations that are producing reasonable medicine for people, so that the monopolies can control everything. And this is really what we've got left from the Rothschilds' efforts that started in the 1800s in order to create this very large, top-heavy organization of control with regards to medicine that has become known as the FDA. And from this, we've sparked up this ridiculous farce that we all witnessed in 2020 that became like a bit of a circus production. Unfortunately, a very real circus production that hurt a lot of people. And testing weapons that were obviously developed in Wuhan province, which, interestingly enough, had been actually brought up by, of all people, Clinton in 2017 in a congressional hearing, where she had pointed out that the Wuhan province, they had a test site there that was developing a COVID-based weapon system, and that she didn't think there was enough oversight for the development of weapons, because if it were to escape or, accidentally leak, it could become a national, international incident, which is exactly what we've witnessed. Whether it was accidental or not, that's a question. But I think that public health is going to be under the gun, which is what we see now, the FDA bringing in and tightening their rules. They've already got 21 vaccines for babies by age 2, which to me is just madness, right? It seems ridiculous. Any vaccines before age 2 seems ridiculous, right? I mean, you've worked with mothers, right? Mothers are giving their immune systems via their mother's milk to their babies.
I mean, if someone sneezes within you, apparently the antibodies to whatever's in the sneeze is in your milk within something like 4 minutes or something ridiculous. So, but the fear mongering's huge, and like New York, you have social services come around if you try and refuse these things. The pressure is just enormous. I mean, I had a 2-hour call yesterday with a woman. Hopefully she's going to spread some information. There's a big maternity services review going on in the UK at the minute, because pretty much all of our services are, failing. And a large part of that's because the resources are all being channeled to induction, C-sections, just everyone being labelled as high risk. And the resources are being stretched so much, but it means the women that need the extra support that these things are meant to help aren't getting it, because they're putting everyone through the conveyor belt system. And I mean, the volume of injections now, and it was the flip-flopping in 2021 about pregnant women should have it, pregnant women shouldn't have it, pregnant women should have it. And I personally don't know how anyone chose to do that experimental thing if they were pregnant like I was in 2021, but I can see the pressure is just enormous. Your entire midwife appointments are pretty much a propaganda exercise about it. It's very fascinating, but yeah, I mean, I think the seeding of the gut biome, all of the benefits of natural labour and birth are being very steadily eradicated. I mean, this started with, we were talking about the witches and magic. There was a big campaign in the kind of 1800s to vilify midwives as unsafe, unclean witches. Their knowledge just eradicated what used to be wise women passing down the ways of helping. And I mean, it's even like, for example, breech birth. It's a variation of normal, but doctors are now, and midwives are so de-skilled in it that they just put almost every breech baby is now just born C-section. Yeah.
I think it's part of the trauma. They want trauma. It's the same reason why we have circumcision being popularized. A lot of children are being mutilated. And if they don't get to you there, then they get to you with the needles, right?
It starts
And
from the
all
very
those
beginning.
vaccines.
Yeah.
And if they don't get you there, they get to you in school. They get to you, you know, the kids, they want to get hold of them. And then, of course, now they want the children to be able to decide at age 7 whether they are ready to have a sex change operation, which is like all good and well. You know, you're not old enough to decide whether you can drive, whether you can drink, whether you can get on a bus by yourself, but you're old enough to decide to change your body permanently forever. That's quite a big step. In the old days, parents used to take responsibility. You know, parents had to. Here's an interesting point about birth. I came to South Africa to have my son, who's now 9. I don't know if you can hear him in the background, theatrics. And I didn't want to be in the UK because of excessive oversight. And I thought, like, I don't want people messing with my business. And so we came here, and I was like, hold a moment. I got myself a lawyer preloaded prior to the birth on fast dial. Just, I had a bit of money at the time. I was like, yeah, what the heck, you know, get a lawyer on a retainer. And in the hospital, they wanted to vaccinate my son. And I was like, no. And they said, no, you have to. It's the law. They have to vaccinate the child. And I said, no. I said, do me a favor. Get the doctor here, please. I've got a lawyer on fast dial, but before I hit that button, I want the doctor present, because the moment I hit that button, money's being spent, and then we've got a lawsuit because it's not my money being spent. It'll be the hospital. So get the doctor here. And the nursing staff went to fetch the doctor. And when the doctor found out that I was standing there with my phone ready to call a lawyer, they came back, and the nursing staff was like, oh, they were scratching their heads. They were like, the doctor said you don't need to. And they said, it's very strange because we were taught that everybody has to. And I explained to them, I said to them, yeah, well, you can't believe what they tell you because it's not the law. And so, like, you literally have to have a lawyer on fast dial to prevent your child from being, you know. Then they wanted to put my child under a yellow light, right? Under the basis of jaundice. And I had explained to them, like, he was a cesarean, but I cut his umbilical cord myself. And immediately the nurse came and stuck something in his mouth. And I was like, what did you do? What did you put in his mouth? Like, the moment she walked past me, she didn't ask me. I was like really annoyed. No, it's vitamin K. I said, what'd you do that for? She said, no, he needs vitamin K. I said to her, no, you've overdosed him on vitamin K, because I've very carefully made sure that his mother has had sufficient vitamin K. And I said to them, now what's going to happen is he's going to turn yellow and he's going to start exhibiting yellow jaundice symptoms, and you're going to want to put him under a light. And they said, no, he'll be fine. A couple of days later, he turns yellow and they want to put him under a light. I'm like, no. So I said to him, I tell you what, I want a doctor here and I want you to take a blood test, because I want you to do a blood works on him. I don't want him under a light because I know he doesn't have jaundice, but I want you to do your due diligence. So they took the blood work test, like I said, under my supervision, because I said no needles touch him without me present watching. I want to see the needle. I want to see the being opened. I'm really fussy, you know, I'm old school. So Anyway, turned out he didn't have yellow jaundice, and it was an OD of. So a lot of the things they do to children, they want to OD them with vitamin K so that they can put them under a light. And putting a child under like a very powerful light when they're young, this is going to have huge effects, because the sight, the eyes don't develop properly, right? The sight only develops, what, 2-3 weeks? Within a month, the eyes are properly developed. So if you're putting your child under a bright light, right, it's going through the eyelids, if that makes sense, because the eyelids are just skin. So you're actually going to cause later on issues with light sensitivity on the eyes, which is really interesting, just so much of what they do. And I think that this mirrors us with the eclipse phenomenon. Like, as a shaman from Vedic heritage, eclipses are not considered a fun event from a shamanic perspective. You don't go and stand outside, put on cool glasses and stare at the eclipse and do a funky little dance. That's not how we roll. The eclipses are timed to not be under the moonlight or the sunlight, because, well, there's a repolarization that happens, and the life-giving power of the sun becomes negative, and it starts to draw the prana or the life force from you when it repolarizes, because there's a particular polarity it's got when it's healthy. So you won't find any shaman that's got a traditional body of law, or a cultist that's really been, through the tunnel of the occult with a legacy, to want to stand under an eclipse, because they'll be like, well, it's going to affect my prana levels, my life force. The electricity on a cellular level has to be at a certain point, and the sun replenishes the electricity on a cellular level in your body. Interestingly enough, the body is also a bit of a capacitor. So when you stand under an eclipse, from an occult perspective, the repolarization of the sun causes you to lose electrical potential. So it slightly lowers the electrical potential on a cellular level, which is effectively the potency and power of your immune system and your life force. And this affects your electromagnetic field. So it means that invasive creatures are now going to be drawn towards your body. So, for example, if you want to know whether a plant is going to be attacked by pests or not, you could test the electrical potential of a cell. And based on the cellular electrical potential, you'll be able to tell which plant's going to be attacked by pests, because pests, be they bacterial, microbial, or bigger, are looking for certain markers on plants, and biological humans, animals were the same. So they're looking for a low potential of energy. And when they find that low potential of energy, they're able to break through into the cells and actually extract nutrients. And so this is really interesting. This idea of the eclipses being made so much of a party phenomenon. In old times, people used to hide away from the eclipse. They didn't quite know why they were hiding away from the eclipse. They were superstitious about it. They didn't understand it had to do with electricity, the human body, the human electromagnetic field, the brain, the hormonal works, the way that the hormones are affected. During eclipses, you're going to have more accidents, car accidents. You're going to have more fatalities. It's a well-known fact. Your brains and your hormone goes a bit haywire, because effectively the melatonin, which is being generated by the pineal gland, is going to be affected. And your serotonin and dopamine levels are also going to fluctuate considerably, because these are all regulated by light on the eyes. So when we look at, that was a very weird audio. When we look at the eclipse where we're standing now, I think that the reason they are doing this memorial on the day of the eclipse is because that's going to assure that the energy generated during the memorial is going to be a little bit wacky and crazy. It's an interesting concept, that they're doing that, because it really doesn't make any sense. Have we lost some?
I wanted to mention, no, I'm here. I'm just going to have to go in a few minutes though. But one thing I wanted to mention is I did a little bit of research on how, what do you call these facilities where they house people with mental problems and so on? On a full moon, they go absolutely like it is the most hectic time for them. They double up on nurses and doctors and everything, specifically on full moons. Like the patients go absolutely haywire. They become very uncontrollable. Yeah, I didn't quite hear you there. But yeah, it is very, very interesting how the moon is involved specifically with the eclipse and how they're messing around with the eclipses or generating them in some way for us to lose potential electrical conductivity within our magnetic field, if you put it that way. But yeah, much love, Franklin, and everybody else. Thanks for having me here, but I'm definitely going to have to run. Yeah, let me know when you want to have another one. I really wouldn't mind being on. Much love. I'll see you guys again soon.
Yeah, man. See ya. Take
Big
care.
love, brother. Thank you for joining us. Om Shanti Shanti. Take it easy. We'll be in touch. Big love.
I've
Much
got
love.
to shoot off. I can hear a screaming child. My 6-year-old's not happy. So I better go and see what he's screaming about now. There's something really going on with him at the moment. I think it's probably something to do with these eclipses, maybe. I'll put it down to that. Or going back to school. You know, to say he's confined all day in school and then comes home and just releases it all. So yeah.
It's a safe space.
What's that?
It's a safe space with you.
Well, yeah, it's in the morning, straight away after school, or on the weekend it would be like in the afternoon, and then in the evening as well. Yeah, somebody else said my 6-year-old is also crying. I think that perhaps kids can pick up on what's going on. Like, maybe I'll use the analogy of a daemon, like in his Dark Materials, where kids is always their perception. So the daemon, a higher self, or your like persona is always shifting. But I think with the adults, their daemon gets stuck. It's the same. It's like perspective. So when you're younger, you're more open to stuff and then open to outside forces, I guess. Whereas when you're a bit older, you're kind of stuck on one kind of perception. This is why the shamanic perspective, or the childlike play with words and languages and symbols, kind of really opens you up. But yeah, I think that kids don't really know how to let this stuff spin. Like I call it a vortex. I just let all this info spin around me, let go what I don't need, and then I let stick with my stick connect, and then I'll keep that and I'll save it for later. But I think with kids, they just there's a lot going on for them. So yeah, I better go and see to him. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
See you
you.
later, Franklin. Let's talk soon. Bye, guys.
Take it easy, brother. Fly with the wind. Big love. Yeah, it's
soon, but yeah.
It's very interesting. Yeah, you know what you were saying about things happening in the UK. I think this is all on the cutting edge right now, and I think medicine is going to be a big thing. It's going to be under attack. I remember I was dating a lady who was like she was high up in NHS. She was like in Scotland. She was a research coordinator, and she was running an institute. And she had explained to me then that she predicted, and this was in 2015, that she would be very surprised if NHS Scotland would not have collapsed by sometime between 25 and 30, like completely collapsed. And you were just like, you can't tell anyone this, like, she's in, she gets priority to information that's not allowed into the public domain. Some of the conversations we had, but that was just one of the things which I think I can share. Her personal feelings were this, and you know, observing the way that the privatization model has brought the UK financial crisis to a head with the NHS, right? Privatizing the hospitals, privatizing the care, privatizing everything. Now, because of excessive privatization, there is excessive risk, because this is what happens when you privatize, right? You got some other company handling the hygiene in your hospital, so you don't know how clean the hospital is. So
Well,
that's an added risk for every operation.
A lot of it is the staff are so scared by policy to even step in when, like, we were in there once and from my daughter cut her eye open on holiday, and it's just like one porter sat there for like 3 hours doing nothing, but they're desperate for porters in another room. It's just there's no coordination. But I think what I found interesting, I was talking to this woman from this journalist yesterday, and she was saying she's been looking at the because they kind of grade different departments on whether they're doing well or not on a kind of traffic light system, and it's like all the departments in most of the hospitals are doing okay, and then it's just maternity care, it's just red at the bottom. And so it can't 100% be a funding issue. There's something about the maternity services that I don't know. It's very interesting, but I think it's going to be a bit like I know a lot of new agers kind of talk about like a 3D 5D split, and I can see that in maternity stuff. Like there's just a group that are just heading to like free birth out of the system, no injections, no interventions, no scans. And then there's like the group that's just getting more and more medicalized, more and more scans, more monitoring, or booking in for C-sections early in pregnancy, or induction, and kind of allow kind of that split is just, I think, going to get wider and wider.
That brings us to this interesting conversation about the twins, the mythology behind the twins, as it's always been. And there's always been this ambivalence, this polarity that seems to be so profound. And I think we're heading back towards that split. And I think this is not the first time. I think it's cyclic. You talk about revelations, you talk about prophecy, about things to come. I think the safest prophecy one can have about the future is to understand what happened in the past, because it sure as hell going to repeat itself.
Yeah.
So I think like these prophecies are cyclical events that are related to the astrotheology, to the movement of the planets and the stars, because they represent the cycles of time and bringing us back to where we started from. And so these eclipses are really like little marking points. I think it's one of the reasons why they want to fabricate eclipses, because if you can fabricate eclipses, you can fabricate people's perspectives. And I think that it's not just a ideology, it's not just a conceptual imagination of like, oh wow, it's an eclipse. I think there's a whole lot of electrical shifts that are happening, because the power of the sun is so vital and important for life. It's not just vitamin E, it's literally okay, so like what's sugar? Sugar is crystallized sunlight. Sunlight falls, the plant transmutes using its leaves, right, its little solar panels. It transmutes the solar energy into a crystallized form of sugar, which it then stores, exhumes under the ground for like microbes, because they don't have access to sugar. So they have to trade under the ground. They trade with the plant. They give the plant broken down minerals. The plant gives them exudes of sugar. And so the sugar moves out through the soil from the plant, obtained from the sun. Then the animals come and eat the plant, and they get the sugars, crystallized sugars, into their bodies. And other animals eat the fruits and the seeds, crystallized sugars. Other animals go to eat those animals which have got the crystallized sugars that came from the sun, from the plant. So everything is surviving on crystallized sugar, which is essentially sunlight. So when you're messing with sunlight, you're messing with something far more profound than just the perception of light, because this is like literally the life force. And I think like fire, what we call fire, is liberation. Why is it wood that burns? Why does wood burn? Well, wood burns because it's got sunlight trapped in the form of sugar crystals, right? And by smashing them apart in a particular way, you can liberate the fire of the sun from the wood. Now, you might say this sounds like archaic magical ideologies. It is really, but it's also it's something grounded in it. Like, this is why all of the things that we burn are organic. Oil, right? Natural gas. These are all organically produced, which effectively came from trees, which effectively came from the sun. So when they start playing with creating eclipses, I think they are reprogramming the energetic field of the earth, the electromagnetic field, the bioresonant field, our bioresonant fields, our brains, our hormones, everything in one fell swoop. And they're sort of putting us into a point of change. And I think that that's what these eclipses represent, shifting polarities, right? Sort of in Tai Chi, if you move your energy that way and then you move your energy that way and you bring your energy back forth, you're going to swish all the energy around in your system. Same as like a bath of water, right? If you swish your water around in the bath, what you're going to do is you're going to mix everything around, aren't you? You're going to mix everything up. So if you got like something in the water, like a piece of sand, it's going to be broken up and dissolved by the water. If you've got sugar crystals in the water and you swish it around, you're going to dissolve. So the power for water to dissolve solids is movement, and energy is able to dissolve blockages in our system, like little solidifications, crystallizations, by the element of moving water, in the same way that moving water will dissolve the soil and turn it into a riverbed and carve a canyon out of the earth if there's enough water, for example. So I think like there's a big aim at shifting the physical resonant frequencies of the electrical magnetic potentials within the earth, and the acoustic field that is accompanying this, which we call them, various different things, ley lines, energetic grid points. I think these fields are based upon the capacitizing effects of the sun. And I think that on a psychological level, mythologically, they put us into a state of polarizing. So every eclipse takes us further apart. Like you say, the those that are for and those that are against, the distance gets bigger. And I've noticed it seems like the distance between the generations are getting bigger at the same time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the generation that were kind of growing up in the 70s and 80s, they had a level of freedom that we didn't have, but everything in terms of from someone more senior was seen as 100% truth. Everything, you had to believe everything you were told by someone from a position of power. I think I was just going to touch on the hormones, because I found that very interesting, because they messed obviously with our calendars to the point where, see, men's hormones are on a 24-hour sun cycle, and women's hormones on a usually 28-day moon cycle, and we should have 13 28-day months a year. But by playing with taking out a month and playing with the dates, it just keeps us so out of sync with what we would used to have historically. But yeah, I mean, I think generationally, or we've certainly seen with lockdowns, COVID, jabs, etc., huge generational distance for me personally, and it's like huge cognitive dissonance on that end of a very much obsession with mainstream media. If it's not on the BBC, it's not truth, which is quite depressing.
I do also think, just looking at this eclipse of the mind, that there's been like excessively powerful psyops agendas coming to the forefront in the course of especially the last 5 years. I mean, it's been coming long and hard. I've followed the 2045 movement since it was built, which is obviously, this is the transhumanist agenda and they really want to get us with as much invasive technology in our bodies as possible. It's part of the agenda. It's part of why the Georgia Guidestones had to be blown up, because they were releasing too much information. They had unrealistic goals to drop the population to 500 million. Well, it's easy. Drop the birth rate to like very, very low, almost non-existent. Make sure that the birth rate that there is ends up with problematic individuals that can't breed after that. Then you've ended the birth rate.
Or choose not
Then
to
you
because they're so traumatized from the whole process.
All that, yeah. And then generate a new form of creating humans, right? Like laboratory humans. This is what they would want. Genetically modified humans. It would be idyllic for them. And the genetic modification of the food, I think, is also very close to this point of the eclipse of the mind, the eclipse of the soul, the eclipse of the body, because they want us to eclipse what we were, to become what we are meant to become in their vision of our futures. And it seems to me that we're like rushing headlong down this dark tunnel, and they keep us marching really, really fast because of the economic consistencies, which is like inflation, right? Gets more expensive every year. So we've got to push harder to keep the money wheel turning so that we're able to maintain this circus, this financial circus that we live in, and add complexities to it. You know, the internet, bring the complexities to it, like your data protection and complexities to that, banking systems, and changing the financial system, I think, is at the heart of this movement. Like where you are in the UK, for example, there's no gun law, right? I remember in 2011, I was...
It's just you have to not have any mental health conditions, which I think is fair, but there are ways to do it. I think people assume it's completely banned.
What are you talking about? Shotguns for hunting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like handguns, private protection handguns.
Well, yeah, certainly not concealed carry, or it's got to be under very strict circumstances. But
in Texas, you can carry as many guns as you want without a license, as long as it's not concealed. Just as an idea, like the differences. Yeah. And what that represents is, for example, there was a guy who was working with our project in 2011, because we were doing a lot of activists projects at that time, and the Bank of Ideas, we were quite busy, and we had an electrician that was coming in to work on our computers, and we had asked him if he could go to Occupy and help them because they needed help fixing some of their machines, and he said, yeah, sure. So he went there, and he had a little penknife in his bag, a tiny little penknife with a blade about that long, which was with his screwdriver set and, electrician. And he got arrested and put in jail. And he was like, listen, man, I'm a technician. I'm an electrician. I use that to cut the wires so that I can strip the wires. It's a special, like one of those, multi-tool knife sets. Like most electricians use them. He actually got put in jail. We had to get him bailed out.
Although I had a normal just cutlery knife taken off me going into the court in London. They wouldn't even let you in with a cutlery knife for your lunch.
I'm not going to ask. you had it in for one of the judges. You were like,
no, I am a lawyer, so I do.
But that's interesting,
we're not allowed to carry even pepper spray here.
Yeah, I mean that's my son's mother gave him a gun. It doesn't shoot bullets, but it shoots blanks. But it's actually a mind blowing. He's 9 years old. I bought him a pellet gun because I wanted to teach him discipline. Like how etiquette, shooting, safety, danger. This is a dangerous thing. Mm-hmm. He needs that solid. I want to prepare him mentally so I can start training him in martial arts. But I can't start training him yet because he'll hurt people and animals. So I need to prepare his mind so that when I teach him things, he won't become too dangerous to other children or other people, which is a serious concern.
Yeah.
You know, like if he learns how to throw a proper punch, he can hurt someone. So anyway, his mom gave him this gun, which is called a blow something. It's basically a PX4, a Beretta PX4, but instead of shooting proper bullets, it's got like a nozzle that's put into the gun. It shoots blanks or pepper spray up to 3 meters, like what's that? 6 feet away. No, that's 9 feet. It can shoot between 6 and 9 feet away, a cloud of pepper spray. You don't even need a license for that. That's South Africa. Just as an example, like this is how different the world is. It's one of the reasons I came to South Africa. I mean, I don't have a gun. I don't like guns. I've got a katana. I won't have a gun in my home, even though I live in South Africa, where like a lot of people have guns. I'm like, no, give me Japanese steel. That's as far as I'll go. But I've got a Malamute. You know, you don't need a gun if you've got a katana and a Malamute. You know, it's a big dog. But I think that the constitutional rights are the first thing to corrode in a society, and this is why they want to remove everybody's guns. This is why they want to get everybody under the thumb. They brought these spray cannons into the UK. I met a guy who lost his eye in France from spray water cannons, and we were trying to help him get campaign assistance and using his situation to try and stop the bringing in of these spraying cannons for people on protest march, right? Those water cannons are quite dangerous. So, and being someone who's been on the front lines, and we took UBS to court, right? I've seen how corrupt the system is. They got an injunction. Okay, you're a lawyer, so you understand what this means. They got an injunction between 5 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. They had an injunction signed by a court judge.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that? The judge gets out of bed at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning to officiate this injunction, and his aides must have been working since like 5 in the morning, you know.
Amazing
and
how they
somehow
can do it when they want to.
Yeah, and this was a big injunction. Like this was Sun Street in the square mile of London. This was closing a road. It's a big deal, right? Because we were having press conferences, and they didn't want us to get too much press there, right? So we had to bring a small press conference into our buildings to actually have closed press conferences. And so anyway, you know, this engine, even the Crown Prosecution Services, the way they operate, there's a lot in this where they get their officiation and their power from. But I think that this, where we're at now between the solar and the lunar eclipse, it's that powerful signal of polarization between the twins that's being actualized here. And this division is something that we're going to be driven towards. Do you have to go? Do you have something calling you?
Chaos is about to descend.
The kids are home, are they?
Three of them. So I love you. I love you and leave you.
Well, it's been absolutely lovely, Abby. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Have an absolutely gorgeous day. Thank you for joining us. Blessed be.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. So yeah, I think this division this divisionalism, this idea of polarization is really what's like at the heart of what we're facing right here. And you know, I see you guys talking about ley lines here. This is very interesting, you know, this repolarization of the Earth's field and how it changes these life-giving forces. Like here in my home, I'll give you guys an example. There are different points where you can be and the energy will be all right. Where I am is almost a neutral zone. If I move a certain point, it becomes positive. If I move a certain point, it will become negative. And these points are like 1 to 2 meters apart, 5 feet. And it's interesting. Like I can feel these currents, I can douse them, I can move through them. And in your home, you're going to have these currents, right? And, it's very interesting when you look at it, like the way these energetic resonant fields operate. If you go into the wild and you watch the ants will always build their mounds in lines. I don't know if you guys have witnessed this. And on the lines that these mounds are built on, these will be places where there is an abundance of positive ionic charge. And the positive ionic charge has got to do with the positive ions of hydrogen. And this is what produces the acidity, and it causes anaerobic life forms to thrive. Ants thrive on it. Flies thrive on it. Maggots thrive on it. Anything that eats rotting substance, certain kinds of microbes will thrive on it. You get the anaerobic and aerobic life forms. The anaerobic life forms are the ones that do not really want the oxygen and the positive life-giving potentials of the negative hydrogen ions that produce the alkalinity. So the different soil types, different types, certain plants will only thrive in certain parts of your garden. If you're trying to grow vegetables and they're failing, douse. You might find that 6 feet away, 2 feet away, 8 feet, or up to 10 feet sometimes, depends. There will be a part of your garden where your garden will thrive because the field shifts its polarity. And you can actually, if you just leave your ground and just observe it, let it go wild, you'll see that there are places where the plants thrive and places where they don't. Where they don't thrive, don't plant. Where they thrive, dig it up and plant. People tend to look at the parts of their garden and think, well, this isn't thriving. Let me turn this into a veggie garden. It's never going to produce. And so these polarities between the positive and negative ions, which is what produces alkalinity and acidity. Acidity is basically a count of positive hydrogen ions. And the positive ion charge count is what we call acidic. The negative ion count is what we call, this is a ratio, alkalinity. And the alkalinity is generally what we need as humans because we've been taught to eat negative food that is positively charged in such a way that it produces acidity in the body. And that acidity gives an environment for anaerobic life forms to thrive. And anaerobic life forms are usually life forms that feed on things that are degrading. So it causes a loss of electrical potential, and that electrical potential is exactly the point that these eclipses are focusing on. So I think that they can increase the potential differences between the places where there are hydrogen and positive, negative ionic charges, which occur in bands. And this is why the ants build their things in lines. I used to have a line of toilets in the jungle where I lived because I used to go to the old ant hills, and I noticed, because like you're living in the jungles, you're meditating all the time, you can feel the electromagnetic field through the earth, through your feet and your hands. And you notice you walk here and say, oh, my heart feels, and you walk here, you feel, feels nice. It's a bit jittery. And so you notice that the jittery places where you feel it are in like bands, and the non-jittery places are like in positive bands. And you want to sit here because it's positive. Then you'll notice that other animals and birds will put their nests in trees where there's positive ions because they want to feel that positive ionic energy. The ants, on the other hand, put their lines on the positive hydrogen ion, which is negative energy for your health, for your homeostasis balance, so that they can farm mold. You see, the mold that they farm under the ground is more likely to thrive in an environment where there are more positive ions, because positive ions produces the acidity necessary for the other microbial life that are part of the rotting of the mold, or the, it's quite a head trip when you think about it, how these things really work. But I think that these positive and negative ions are really what we're talking about when we're looking at eclipses. They're shifting between these positive and hydrogen ions, which is one of the reasons why shaman don't observe eclipses, right? Like you won't catch a shaman out there with glasses on looking at the eclipse, or not a shaman that knows these things. It seems to me that we've been sort of hoodwinked into this sort of craze mentality where everybody goes out and watches the eclipse, not realizing that they're actually directly affecting the electrical potential of the cells in their bodies and how they're going to respond to different ionic charges. And these ionic charges, how they're going to affect their bodies fundamentally, and what that's going to do to them is there's a long chain reaction happening with all of these energetic influences. So, yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack when we look at these eclipses. And the eclipse of the mind has to happen in conjunction with the eclipse of the body. So this whole story of this guy that was, shot, and this whole drama that started with the Burning Man, that has become, filling our airwaves with dramatism, is being focused on that day so that their rituals can coincide with it. You see, that evening, okay, you guys ready for this? My school where I went, okay, I can tell you this now. I can tell you this for a fact. My high school where I went, right, and I'm pretty sure it's still the same because the old boys are a wing of the Masons, will be doing a ritual on that evening here in South Africa. And the time difference, I hope you guys are ready for this, when they'll actually be doing that, right, that particular ritual will be such that they will be here in the evening doing the ritual, doing the actual time that the people are getting together for that little gathering, right? Namaste, Pa. I hope you're going on. I hope you're going well. I hope you're thriving. And so what we're talking about here is that there will be a ritual being done underneath the swimming pool of SACS, South African College Schools. SACS is the oldest Anglo-Saxon school in South Africa. It was around since the early 1800s. Is it the early 1800s? Was it the 1840s? I forget. It's the oldest school in the country. It's an Anglo-Saxon school. The old boys are a huge, prominent part of the Masons, and it's a Masonic recruitment space. We used to get a lot of this information. We knew about it, and there were opportunities for us to move forward in our careers if we became affiliated with the old boys, which would affiliate us with the Masons. And we were informed this. I don't know if everybody was, but many of us were. So anyway, this whole situation is that I used to go and watch, and with other students in the evenings, we used to sneak into the school grounds, and I used to watch the headmaster with certain of the teachers parading with other people dressed in rigmarole, in gowns with things over their chests, big lamens, staffs of office, and they would walk through a particular place, which is we have a big wall of remembrance where it's a shrine that's been built for those that died in the war. Right? You've got to really understand what I'm saying here. And the last post gets played twice a day from that place. One of our music people would have gone and stood there. And we had to stand in silence while they play the last post. And it's sort of like a recognition. It's actually a celebration of all of those that were sacrificed in the war. And the marching of the procession marches from that point through the grill gates, which is an ancient set of grill gates, been there since before the school was built. And that school, just to bring you one more point, the Escher stone was brought from Egypt in that school. It's the oldest physical school in the country. They explained to us how they brought that Escher from Egypt. So there's so much going on here. they will march from there in a procession, because the swimming pool is an Olympic swimming pool. And underneath that swimming pool, well, right next to the pool, there's an all boys foundation. And that all boys foundation has a downstairs part underground. And that underground part has one door that nobody ever goes through. Students aren't allowed in there. It's an old boys foundation. Only the old boys, the Masons, go in there. And certain of the prefects that live in the boarding houses that are part of things that happen to boys that should never happen to boys in an all boys school, involving certain faculty members, right? This was going on when I was in school. We all knew about it. This is the reality. I won't mention any names, but this was happening. And I got it actually from the horse's mouth of one of the students who I used to speak to about it. I used to say, dude, what's going on here? Like, he was quite gay. A lot of the boys felt threatened by it. But he had been, there had things that happened with him and certain of the teachers. And I asked him about it. And he didn't want to talk about it. I said, dude, you can tell me. It's confidence. And I used to protect a lot of the boys in my high school, because like what I was good at was fighting. An all boys school, if you're the hottest fighter, you can make rules. The other boys have to follow the rules. So the bullying was abandoned. Initiations of the younger kids wasn't allowed, because all the seniors were scared of me. Even when I was younger, by the time I was 15, I was too dangerous to get into a fight. I would hospitalize my opponent. So nobody there wanted to get into a fight with me. So, but anyway, this guy was somebody who I had offered, and I'd looked after him. I made sure nobody messed with him. And he said to me, okay, I'll tell you, but don't tell anyone. And he explained to me that, yes, he had been, and it had been really difficult for him. And he had been touched, and things had happened. So anyway, these pedo people in these schools do rituals underneath this Olympic swimming pool, where there's a big water pool. And I can't remember how many liters were in that water, a particular number. I remember thinking of the number of liters was really interesting. Exactly. There was a lot of bullying in the high school, and they used to go and take the small boys, and they used to push their heads into toilets. They used to beat them up. They used to make them and humiliate them. They used to put them between the windows, and they had these windows that you could put down with the shutters closed on the outside and make them dance in their underwear, humiliating them in the tuck shop. And one day I saw this and I was so angry. I walked into the seniors' change room, because I wasn't allowed in there. I was only 15. That's where all the 18, 19-year-olds walked in. I said to them, this nonsense has got to stop. And they were like, oh, who do you think you are? And the biggest guy got up, and I floored him with a roundhouse kick. And I said, I think I'm the best fighter here. Anybody want to challenge me? And the guy I'd floored was like, he was the main big guy, so nobody wanted to mess. And I said to him, if I catch any of you hurting any kids in the school again, if I see any of this nonsense initiations, there's going to be trouble. So I was like really wild when I was young, but I did leave a legacy, and that nonsense stopped on my watch. But this bullying, it was institutionalized. It was accepted. The teachers knew it was happening, and it was all part of the same kind of hazing thing that you'll see in the Skull and Bones. They were preparing the younger children for this kind of hazing ritual, and I was aware of it then because I knew about the occult. I knew exactly how it worked, and so this is why I had lost respect for institutions of learning, because I'd been to supposedly one of the good schools. I wasn't rich, but my mom was quite successful, and she had put me in a good school, and I was able to, be there. But I had become totally disillusioned by the time I was 15, because I understood what they were doing, these magical rituals under the pool, which I was also doing magical rituals at my home, right? And on that evening, after they were there, I would go on the mountain on my own, you see, do my own thing. But I noticed these processions that would lead from the school up into the mountains sometimes, of people wearing black cowls. Very interesting. And they would walk chanting through the forests, carrying, flames. So I think that there will be a lot of magical work happening on Sunday. Yeah, you can count on it. There's going to be a lot going on. And it's the solstice, so it's the equinox. So it relates to the moving between the polarities of the positive and the negative ionic yielding energies, which is the forces of life and death, the balance. So they want us to celebrate that there has been a loss at the point where we're at that point of renewal. And I think it's really important. Namaste, Mooney. How are you doing? I hope you're good. Namaste, Equaluti. I don't know how to pronounce the rest of that word. And yeah, the spell solution, know thy enemy, much love. Big love, brother. It was an honor and a pleasure. Lovely. We'll have to do it again. So yeah, I think that there's definitely going to be this a lot of these magical rituals happening, and it's not by coincidence that this all happened leading up to that day of the eclipse being what leads into the equinox, so that they can have that sacred celebration of that person's life that was sacrificed. We're talking about ritual sacrifice here, effectively. And no coincidence. The fact that it's Burning Man, what is the Burning Man ritual all about? What is the Burning Man festival? Like, people go to the Burning Man and they don't know the roots of what Burning Man is all about. It literally is a burning man. It's an effigy of a man that's being burnt. And so, there's a lot there to uncover and to unpack, I think. And I do believe that we're reaching that sort of point of crisis energetically, where there's going to be a powerful resurgence of consciousness and energy that's going to sort of put us onto a new playing field. And they need us to be focusing on these little things while they backstage are working their spells. And Hollow Hawk put me onto one of Joe Rogan's second or third latest shows. Go and take a look at some of the Joe Rogan shows. He interviewed this guest. Maybe you know what his name is, Hollow Hawk. And he's a whistleblower. And he's worked within the pharmaceutical cartels. I call them cartels because they're like gangsters, basically. And just exactly what's happening now with regards to the campaigning and the shifting of legislation in order to make it harder for medicine to be produced by the smaller, more ethical organizations, so that the huge monopolies can control the money and medicine, because medicine equals money. It's a big industry, many, many billions. So, there's probably a lot going to be happening judicially as well. There's probably going to be new laws that are going to be brought into play, which is probably going to give, make it harder to get registration for drugs and for medicine, and possibly going to change what is allowed to be used for medicine and what isn't. And this is, I think, like it's a major turning point for public health. It's also a major turning point for our rights. And we've been on this turning point for a while, but I think that this pivot of what is being ritualized and sacrificed here via this man who has become a figure of the proverbial burning man that we are now, we're now brought to a crux, the cross, the crossing, the crux. That's what the Ku Klux Klan were burning crosses for, by the way. It relates to these rituals, which relates to the Burning Man ritual, which is really, really interesting, And the Rose Cross Order was really, trying to break away from this tradition. But I don't think that they were able to do that. I think that the organization got polluted from the inside. So yeah, crisis actors, professional propaganda, generating. I think what you're saying is right as well. There is a lot of propaganda that's being pushed. And it's like I was speaking to Hollowbone Hawk about it. Like, I have my doubts about the Joe Rogan show, if I'm going to be honest. There we go, episode 2376. Go and watch it. Obviously, I take Joe Rogan with a serious pinch of salt, because there's been a lot of things that I've watched and I've been like, what is the real underlying information being passed here? But the thing is that in order to sell any kind of a lie, those black magicians that are manipulating us, and thank you for that, Hollowbone Hawk, thank you. Those black magicians, and I mean black arts magicians to specify what I mean, are really out to generate this facade of delusion. But in order to sell us the lie that generates this facade of delusion, they've got to sell us the truth. They've got to sell us 90% of the truth. They've got to water down 90% of absolute truth with 10% of little pieces of puzzle pieces of lies. So there's a lot of truth that we can gain by watching these episodes. For example, whatever our perspective is with regards to Joe Rogan, 90% of what's coming out there is going to be true. Now, there are going to be a few little skews, and those skews are probably going to be to do with how to interpret this information, what to do with it, what to take from it. These ideas need to be our own. And this is what we've got to guard ourselves against, because this is how propaganda works. But propaganda only is effective when they are using the truth to sell a lie. So there's an interesting little metaphysical riddle. You know, you can look at the proverbial lies of propaganda and get back to a fairly efficient truth. And big love, namaste, thank you, Equal, sending you big blessings and big love. We can get back to an effective, an effective reflection of how this truth will manifest within us. And will this truth become poisonous and destructive, or will it become something that's positive and life-affirming? And I think that this life-affirming principle is really what we've got to be looking at. We've got to be focusing on this. We must not let ourselves become duped by the fact that he looks like he's on Cyberlink. He does, doesn't he? Got to wonder what supplements he's on. But we must be very careful not to allow ourselves to throw the baby out with the bathwater on one hand, or be taken in by these very subtle engineering systems, which is like socially engineering our minds and creating that total eclipse of the mind. It's like the topic where we're really at here. The physical eclipse, the eclipse of this person's life, the Burning Man, the story. Wow, what a media sensation this whole thing has been turned into. And now they're going to go and celebrate, right? Celebrate the ritual. And then, bang, we go straight into the equinox. And I think that this is something that's quite powerful. I think I think Cyberlink maybe is just basically, we're talking about like a reflection of transhumanism in the flesh, right? And I think that's sort of the metaphor. I could be wrong, but yeah, I think it's so important for us to get to the point where we can just sort of put our feet on the ground and keep it real, and get ourselves sort of, not to be moved by all of this media sensation, to recognize and realize that they are doing these magical rites and these rituals. And yep, that new implant to merge with AI, that transhumanist agenda, which is so scary if you think about it. Starlink is, I think, probably the first step. And then old Musk has got his clicker, put it in there. And it's probably just a prototype. They're probably going to be making various different types, some that have more override control and some that don't. Like if you get the cheap version, you won't have much control over the hardware. and probably be rented. You know, you'll be renting hardware that goes into your head. What a scary thought. Or you'll be paying it off, or you'll be liable to somebody else who's owning a piece of your body, effectively. So yeah, exactly, Star. I think this is where we're heading towards. So I think we're going to leave it at that for the day. I see we've gone over the 2-hour mark, which was where I was planning to get to. Sending you all so much love, big blessings, peace, honor, and respect. Do not let this fiasco carry you away. Don't get carried away with the dramas that they're projecting. There are going to be more dramas coming in September, October, I believe. So be ready for them. Try and focus on the trees around you. The trees have a wonderful way of bringing you back down to the earth and balancing this ionic energy in the body, which is something we all need. With that, I'm going to love you and leave you. Sending you all big love, big blessings. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namah Shivaya. Take it easy and don't forget to smile, because life's just too short not to. Thank you, Star. You're a star. You're all stars. And big love.